Welcome back to the Metro on 1019 WDET FM. I'm Tia Graham.
And I'm Robin Vincent. Detroit is one of the most creative cities on the planet. And yes, we are a little biased. Still, this city has been home to many innovative, influential artists, from painters to musicians and photographers. So how do you honor someone who spent their life documenting the details of everyday life in Detroit, someone who educated and mentored future photographers to help them to see Detroit in untold ways? Locally known as the Dean of Detroit Photography, Bill Rauhauser wanted to present to the world the Detroit that he knew and loved. Born just a few months before the end of World War I, Bill documented Detroit through his lens from the 1940s until his death in 2017. He captured the human experience in the city during rapid changes and racial divisions.
That is right, Robin. Not only was he nationally recognized, he helped uplift a generation of photographers. He worked as a professor at the College of Creative Studies for more than 30 years, while guest lecturing at Wayne State and the University of Michigan, to name a few. And this month, Coup D'état, a local boutique in East English Village, in collaboration with Hill Gallery out in Birmingham, will host an exhibition honoring the life and work of Bill Rauhauser. To talk a little bit more about the exhibit and Bill Rauhauser's legacy is Angela Wisniewski-Cobbina. Angela is the owner of Coup D'état. Angela, welcome to the Metro.
Thank you both for having me. Honored to be here.
Thank you for being here. Once again, I love that sweatshirt, Make America Detroit Again. That is what's up. That is what's up. But Bill Rauhauser documented Detroit through his whole life, basically, and made sure to photograph everyday life. So who was Bill, and why did you decide to honor Bill?
So Bill, as Robin stated, is known as being the Dean of Detroit Photography. So he had been capturing streetscapes, city life, people for decades, and even before photography was considered the fine art that it is today, right? And also as you mentioned, segregation era, there was a lot of things that I think he was really envisioning that were ahead of his time. So that's what makes, I think, looking back, his work significantly more special, especially in this moment. But, he was born in 1918, grew up in the city, really just happened upon a camera accidentally from in his teen years. His father gave him a stamp collection, and he swapped it out for a camera with a peer at his school because he wasn't interested in his stamp collection. And the universe works in wild ways. So that kind of kicked off his interest and his journey, and he really started to document the streets in the 40s. So seeing these photographs today in 2025, I get emotional. I get a little choked up looking at the subjects, the brick and mortar retail, the history of Detroit, and the people.
And we're going to get definitely into just the people in the community, especially where you are situated right now in East English Village. But Bill Rauhauser, he stood out in a particular way. Like you said, he was doing beautiful portraits and beautiful shots when people weren't thinking of looking at it in that way. And you said that Bill would capture pure works of the human condition. So can you talk just a little bit about what made people stop and actually let time pass when they were viewing some of his photographs, especially in 2025?
So, I think one thing that he was known for in old school street photography, he would just go, he would just go and hang out and wait for something to happen, which is really interesting. And, comparing it, I hate to keep comparing it to where we are, but, we lived in a very content forward, social media driven world where, there's a lot of things that are very contrived. So he was very present and in the moment and waiting for interesting things to happen, and he had graduated from UMD, studied architectural engineering. And in a way, in his images and in his compositions, you can almost see that. With the architecture and the way things are laid out and, how things are presented. So, seeing these today really are pieces of history that we hope many people who maybe aren't familiar with his work can be exposed to.
Yeah, I mean, we call it today. We can keep bouncing back and forth for today and then, but we call it today a off guard, or they caught me off guard with the camera, and that's what he would do. He was catching folks just in their natural habitats, which a lot of us kind of frown upon now. We want everything to be perfect. We want to take the perfect photo and be perfect all the time. So the human condition is very, very interesting to capture when we're not paying attention to it. But can we talk just a little bit about his work as an educator? He worked as a professor at the College for Creative Studies for more than 30 years. Mm-hmm. He also guest lectured across Metro Detroit and across the country, honestly, across the world as well. So can you talk a little bit about his passion for teaching and mentoring? Because he found that second half of his life. It wasn't even the first part of his life.
Right. He had said, your involvement in the general culture is what really matters. And I think that's important, too, when you're showcasing a culture in a city. He was actually immersed in it, too. He wasn't just documenting it and going back to his house in whatever town. He was truly immersed in the culture. 30 years at CCS, Wayne State. He was crucial in developing the photography program at the DIA, which his connections there eventually led him to have work at MoMA. So he was a doer. He was a historian. He was an advocate for photography and making it a fine art.
I mean, when I saw some of the work that he did for MoMA and the importance of the work that he was doing for MoMA, that was in 1955 when he started to do some of that work, which is just like, number one, I didn't even know that it was such a huge deal for MoMA in 1955 to have collections like that featured, but to have him featured among so many other folks, and he stood out in this space, which was amazing to see. And you talked just a little bit about some of the work that he's been able to do here in the city of Detroit. Can you just talk a little bit more broadly about some of his contributions to the city of Detroit in terms of photography?
He was a very prolific artist and photographer, and he had won or was awarded the Kresge Eminent Artist Award in 2014, just a few years before his death. Yeah. And that really speaks volumes to his contributions, not just, again, as an artist, but a philanthropist, a advocate, a historian. He's got, we're only showing a tiny, small amount of his works, but they're all each individually so important. Like when you look at them, you feel like you're really getting an accurate portrayal of history. And I think, again, that's a really important thing and a part of his legacy.
Yeah. There was just this one photo that I remember stood out. I saw it was in a Black community. I believe it may have been Paradise Valley, but there were storefronts. There were old men standing out front, and in the window there was a picture of Lena Horne, I believe it was. And I just thought to myself, like, how cool is this to see this little like time capsule of the city of Detroit, especially in parts of the city that no longer exist. So it's just really, really, really great to see some of those photos. You're listening to the Metro on 101.9 WDET FM. I'm Tia Graham.
And I'm Robin Vincent. We're speaking with Angela Wisniewski-Cobbina. She's the owner of the boutique Coup D'état in East English Village. It's hosting an exhibit showing works from the late photographer Bill Rauhauser. Angela, let's get into the photos a little bit more if we could. There are 23 pieces, and you said they really give an accurate portrayal of history. Tell us about the story that you wanted to tell with these photos.
Well, I'm very grateful for the wonderful folks at Hill Gallery who work with the Rauhauser estate to bring some of these in. We decided on a small variety. I'm a boutique, so I'm not a traditional gallery. So it's more of a salon style layout, and it really works with the space. So it's going to be a little different than a general gallery exhibition. We did a nice selection, basically 50s, 60s, 70s era, which we thought kind of all work nicely together. So we have, something he's known for, the original MoMA piece that was in the curated by Edward Steichen in his first show. So the Three on a Park Bench, which is one of his very well-known pieces from Belle Isle. We have a nice variety ranging from neighborhoods, as I mentioned to Tia, like State Fair. It's just a nice geographical look too when you realize where the locations are. So it's a little bit of history context, and then I think what works with the shop brand and kind of combining our aesthetics to present something that feels cohesive.
Could you talk about one of the photos that's your favorite?
Oh, this is really hard. This is really hard. I love all of them. The works are for sale. I'm just like, which one should we invest in? Talking to my husband about this. So I think the woman standing along Woodward, it's a beautiful back-facing silhouette of a woman just looking. And again, this is where you see the almost the architectural engineer in his background come in. I love the woman on the bus on Woodward. A lot of his stuff was on Woodward. I love the barber shots. As a brick and mortar retail store owner, I have a soft spot for those spaces. Some are no longer here. Some are different things now. So seeing those, I think also, I carry a really soft spot for. Speaking of which would be the J.L. Hudson's image, if we could skip to that, because that's, a pretty significant photo of his. So it's a veteran doing a salute in front of the old J.L. Hudson site, which at the time, during patriotic holidays, they would put up the world's largest American flag. I mean, it was massive. So this shot, captured during a parade, has a veteran doing a salute to the camera. And, this kind of takes us full circle to where we are today, given, Mayor Duggan's recent State of the City in the newly resurrected Hudson site. And it's kind of this full circle moment for Hudson's and for retail and for brick and mortar and for the city of Detroit. So it's really special.
Now, speaking of special brick and mortar places, do you see yourself opening up your shop, Coup D'état, to more art exhibits?
Yes, I would love to. I have pop-ups that generally support local artists, makers, fashion designers, furniture designers, and the space in the neighborhood where I'm situated now. I was in New Center before. Really lends itself to that. A lot of art synergy, a lot of artists and creatives, and the developers are really arts focused. So I would love to. This is a really kind of a pinch me moment to even be showing Bill's work. It's kind of surreal to me. So yes, I would hope to keep it, kind of a rotating space. Also, the works just look so amazing in there that I'm like, the walls can't be empty ever again after this.
Let's stay on that topic, though, of East English Village. I mean, you moved your store from New Center. That was a very concerted decision that you made because you wanted to be part of the growing arts community in East English Village. In what ways do you see yourself becoming more involved other than some of the ways you just mentioned? I mean, there is an arts movement that is really starting to flourish in that area.
So, retail, brick and mortar retail is just generally immensely challenging. I did feel a nice support there, knowing that some of the things that were going to be happening. I have, things right next to me, a signal return, an amazing letterpress studio, a bar, a cafe is coming, my neighbors at Progressive Art Studio Collective, and that's just one building. And then down the street, there's artists living there and the Shepherd. And, it's nice to be, as a fashion retail store, who I have accessories, I'm definitely a niche concept, but I've always been rooted in art and design. So it really just felt like the best pairing for continuing the business.
And just really quickly jumping in, Angela, we're going to talk a little bit later about face-to-face interactions, the importance of talking to strangers. And you have a business that people need to come in and talk and be in person with you. Yeah. So can you talk about the importance of having face-to-face interactions and connections with people, especially as you have the Bill Rauhauser exhibit headed to your store?
This is such a great question. I love you guys are talking about this today. I think we're losing that, right? And people are more digitally obsessed, spending time doom scrolling, not getting out and having conversation. And I'm guilty of this too, to be clear. It's easy to sit on your phone and on your couch and feel safe and comfortable in your own algorithm, in your own echo chamber. But the more we lose those, hey, what's your name? Sitting at the bar conversations at a happy hour or walking up to people and introducing yourself, I think you have more in common with the person across from you than social media or the news would like you to believe.
Would you say that talking with customers has changed how you look at the world?
Yes. And specifically, in retail and in clothing retail, my goal for this was, sort of arming women with confidence, or a pseudo-confidence, if you will, just because, clothes are an external thing. But they are part of your appearance. And, for me, speaking of another photographer, I can't think of his name right now. I'm going to skip that part. But it's important to get to know people offline and, hear their stories and talk to them and figure out, the things that keep them going, the things that move them, things that inspire them, and also introduce people to new ideas and concepts, and always be open to that as well.
Angela,
Bill Cunningham is who I meant to quote.
Okay,
look at you.
How redemptive.
Exactly.
I was like, the other Bill, another amazing street photographer, who said, fashion is a way to survive everyday life. And I believe that.
I love it.
Angela Wisniewski-Cobbina for the win there. She's the owner of Coup D'état. Angela, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro. Bill Rauhauser, a retrospective in collaboration with The Hill, opens March 29th at Coup D'état with a celebration of Bill's life and legacy from 5 to 8 p.m. The show will be on display through May. Angela, thanks for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Tia.
Thank you. From the WDET newsroom, Congresswoman Debbie Dingell supports President Trump's 25% tariffs on automotive imports. But the Michigan Democrat says car companies and suppliers need time to adjust to them. Trump claims the tariffs will eventually bring production back to the U.S. And Dingell says strategic tariffs could do that, but it won't happen overnight. Automotive analysts warn the tariffs will raise car prices that are already higher than many Americans can afford and put thousands of people out of work.
Coming up at 11, do you talk to strangers? There are apparently a lot of benefits to doing so. We'll talk about that, and you can give us your thoughts. 313-577-1019. Up next, many Windsorites are frustrated with President Trump's trade wars and his talk of annexing Canada. We'll cross the border to hear from some of our Canadian neighbors about that next. Stay with us. This is the Metro.